When we started the company, our first order consisted of a couple pallets of mattresses, and those pallets came to Singapore a couple weeks after we had just started our website, and we had already taken pre-orders for a few customers. And those pallets came in completely soiled due to a typhoon that had swept across Singapore. I got the call from the warehouse in Singapore and I cried. I called the vendor that night. I said, I've known you guys for a dozen years or so. We've built this relationship of trust. I really need you guys to give me this second shot. And we were their smallest client at the time. And today I'm proud to say that we're their biggest client worldwide. I'm forever loyal and thankful that they gave us that second chance.
Hello and welcome to the D2C podcast. I'm Eric Dick. Today we're chatting with Noa Home Furnishings founder Jeremy Kopek about his company's incredible growth journey that started with a $50,000 investment, a completely soiled pallet, a clever international strategy, and a burning desire to reinvent how furniture is sold online. Listen to this podcast to learn why starting in international markets can be your best play. Think 60% lower CPMs for starters. How Jeremy managed to scale to 20 million with only 5 employees, how to create great unit economics for furniture, why a custom-built ERP has made all the difference for Noa's ability to maintain a staggering 4x ROAS on all ads. And also you'll learn how virtual consultations are the cherry on top of Noa's conversion funnel. Get comfortable, put your feet up, and settle in for another great episode. On with the show. Welcome to the D2C podcast, Jeremy. Can you start with the why as to why you built Noa Home?
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for having me. I've been in the furniture business for near 20 years. And I was previously at a company which I helped grow well over, $100 million. I was there and saw it expand across Canada to become one of the biggest furniture companies that currently operates there. And in 2015, I welcomed my first child, Noah, and I wanted to transition into something of my own. I wanted to build something of my own that spoke to me in an area of the world that I knew very well at the time. I was based in Singapore and in an industry that I love, which is furniture. And so in 2015, my partner at the time and I saw an opportunity in the market to do something we love and pursue something that we felt would capture the hearts and the minds of customers.
Amazing. And now describe your growth journey from 2015. I know you went from a small investment to where you're at now. Can you describe that journey?
Yeah, absolutely. So, at the time I was based in Singapore, and we saw an opportunity in 2015, 2016, wherein in Asia Pacific, there were virtually very few to none of any D2C type of brand. So the likes of Warby Parker, Glossier, Away, these are things that were not prevalent in that area of the world. That's number one. Number two is you have, high e-commerce fluency in Asia Pacific, densely populated countries. And so my partner and I wanted to do something on a bootstrap business. And we put in $50,000 and we launched Noa Home, again, named after my son. And that $50,000 was enough to buy, a few products, a couple pallets of product, and put up our website and launch. And in that first year, we sold $1 million. And then in our second year, we sold 3, and then 7, and then 13. And then last year, we finished our year at $21 million in sales, having never taken any outside dilutive capital up until this point.
So that was a 6-year journey starting at 50K and rounding off at 21 million and continuing to grow, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I do want to mention to the audience that we today are still only 5 employees. My partner and I managed the business up until about $7 or $8 million of revenue, just him and I. Everything from photo shoots to website design, purchasing and planning, finance, operations, just him and I managing operations across, at the time, two countries, Singapore and Australia. And at the time, we started to talk about the need of having a great team. So we started hiring a few folks, and we're still five. And today, at the $21 million mark, we're still in Singapore and Australia, but also operating in the UK and in Canada.
Very cool. I want to know with a 21 million, five team members. Those got to be some critical team members to only have five of them. But I wanted to start first with this idea of starting the business in Singapore and in Australia. I think you started it. You started it overseas to start. Can you talk about that decision? I think so many entrepreneurs think about, okay, got to start in the U.S. or start in Canada if you're Canadian. Can you talk a little bit about the decision to start in Singapore and sort of what benefits that gave you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I touched upon this for a brief few seconds, but effectively, when we started the business, there's a few key factors for any type of D2C brand that I'm sure your audience is familiar with. You obviously need product. You need a market that will respond to that, but you also need to have a sustainable acquisition strategy, right? And those dollars are critical. And $50,000 is really not that much when you think about it. So, one, having been in the business for 17 years, I had key relationships in East Asia that virtually required no minimum quantities, MOQs. So we were able to buy a couple pallets of products to get to market and try that out. That was number one. Number two, we wanted markets that had a lot of white space. So in North America or Western countries, there were well-funded, large incumbents within D2C furniture retail. And we just felt that we didn't have the strong enough pillars, so to speak, to compete. And so what we saw was three things. One, proximity to manufacturing and suppliers. Two, e-commerce fluency in markets that in Singapore, Australia, look a lot like Canada, US, UK, English speaking, highly densely populated, and e-commerce penetration was high and growing really, really quickly. And then the third was acquisition costs. So in Singapore and Australia, again in 2015, 2016, the cost of advertising on Facebook and Google was approximately, I would say, 60% cheaper than in North America. So effectively, our 50K could just go further in Singapore and Australia. And at the time, I was based there temporarily. So we felt that we had a blueprint to start our business, and I think it worked out pretty well.
I think the quantity thing is something, especially in the furniture space, must be something that would dissuade, non-capital intensive entrepreneurs in a way. But to have those connections and be able to go below those minimum quantity orders was a nice benefit for sure.
Yeah, I mean, when you speak to founders, starting any company of any type is hard. Starting any company without capital, even harder. And then starting a company without capital within like the hardware space or products with margins and freight and warehousing is extraordinarily hard. And obviously, you could tell that I lost a lot of hair doing this, but I loved what I did and do. And so the reason why the MOQ piece is so important is there's actually two reasons. So the first is obviously we didn't have the capital to buy that much merchandise. That's number one. And the second is this idea of iteration or experimentation. So what we were able to do at the very early days, and we still do this today, is we'll try products, we'll try new SKUs, we'll buy very few of them, and our factories and that relationship, those relationships help in doing so. So we get to test the market really rapidly to see if there's traction or not, and then invest in purchasing inventory well in advance. So that strategy holds to this day. And if I may, I want to share a story about just the hardship of starting a business, especially a product uh, based one. Eric, when we started the company, our first order consisted of a couple pallets of mattresses. And in Asia Pacific, something that's quite common is typhoons, uh, similar to hurricanes. And we got that first shipment, and we couldn't afford insurance on cargo and ocean freight. And those pallets came to Singapore A couple weeks after we had just started working on our website and we were about to launch, and we had already taken pre-orders for a few customers. And those pallets came in and they were completely soiled due to a typhoon that had swept across Singapore. These are products that were unsellable, that were wet, that were damp, the boxes were mangled. And I got the call from the warehouse in Singapore, and we did all of this remotely from Montreal, Canada. And I cried. I cried. I called the vendor that night from Montreal to China, given the time difference. And, I said, I've known you guys for the time it was, a dozen years or so. And I said, we've built this relationship of trust over so many years. I really need you guys to give me this second shot. Can you please reproduce this order? I'm begging you. And we worked out a way to repay them. And we were their smallest client at the time. And today I'm proud to say that we're their biggest client worldwide on the basis of them, putting that trust in what we had as a vision. And I'm forever loyal and thankful that they gave us that second chance.
That's amazing. Any suppliers out there listening, take heed. When you invest in good customers, because I guess at that point, you had your reputation in the space, you'd worked in the space, you knew them before, but you hadn't made any. You'd made some pre-sales. I guess you had that evidence, but really it was them taking a chance on you, I would imagine.
That's right. They were taking a chance on myself and my partner, and this idea that we were creating something compelling within the space that would resonate with customers. And I'm sure glad that they were there then, and they still are today. And it's really hard to find good factories, uh, you know, factories that make great products, great quality, deliver on time. It's hard enough to find them, let alone create these bonds where they want you to succeed, and there's a personal connection there too. So we're very lucky.
Very interesting. So with Singapore, so you mentioned this incident happened when you were actually not in Singapore. I was curious, would you advise to was it essential that you were in Singapore in order to start? I guess it helped that the factory was there, but was it essential that you be in Singapore in order to start your off there with your marketing efforts?
Yeah, so I used to, I was in China, or let's just say East Asia, the better part of, 4 to 6 to 10 months a year for over a decade. So I speak Mandarin. I was able to develop these relationships, and I traveled extensively in the area. So I had a good pulse of these countries. And Singapore, is this incredible country that's very much like ours. In fact, in many respects, more advanced, if I could even say so myself. And so I've been there many, many times before. Launching a business there is no different to me than launching a business from Montreal and selling in Vancouver. And so one of the things I would share with your audience and fellow founders is, we all have taken risks. We've taken risks to start something that we love. We've put in the sweat, the tears, the excitement. If we're lucky enough, we have partners in our life that support us in doing so. And, I believe that, the world has flattened out despite, the challenges in the past few years. What a customer wants in Singapore for their home, a great mattress to sleep on, beautiful bedding to feel when they cover themselves, a great sofa is no different than someone in Toronto, Ontario, or New York City, right? And so it's really about tapping into what people really want for their home and understanding how to deliver a product that speaks to that. And I don't see that Singapore is any different than any other country that we could operate in.
Except for the fact that it was at the time 60% cheaper, which gives you that ability, and with your factory right there, as you were saying too, that ability to iterate quickly, to really dial in on the product market fit, really make sure people loved it before you took on these more hyper competitive markets.
Yeah, so what's unique about the furniture space is that customers, so one, it's highly segmented, right? It's not a winner take all market. Customers want stock, they want availability, they look for style, price point, perceived quality, things of this nature. Also, customers typically will furnish their home from many brands, right? They'll buy their chairs from one brand, their sofa from another, and their mattress from a third company. So really, what's important is understanding what customers really want. That's number one. Number two is they're looking for an experience and trust in the product they're looking for. And then the third is within the furniture business, customers have grown accustomed to lengthy delays and this idea of pre-purchasing products. So I'll give you an example. If you're moving or renovating, you'll typically buy, you know, home furnishings for several weeks, if not months in advance. So the idea of concluding transactions or prepayments well in advance is how we funded our business. So we actually would pre-sell mattresses, sofas 3, 4, 5 months in advance, and that's how we were able to fund our business is on the basis of these pre-orders. And this is really unique to our industry, I would say. It's not, the same for beauty, for example, where you'll prepay beauty products for 3 months out. And
Or
so,
highly customized ones. Yeah, you're not
or highly custom
customizing.
ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something else that's really, I would say, unique about our thesis or how we wanted to go about building a new type of brand. So in the furniture space, traditionally, buyers are mandated to create these assortments, right? And so they'll have a budget, they'll attend trade shows, and they'll basically pick and point products until they deplete their budget. And they have various mandates by category or by seasonality or whatnot. But when you're renewing a collection by up to 50, 60, 70%, right? There's so much waste. It's a suboptimal kind of approach to developing product and capital allocation. You have to merchandise this, you need to re-merchandise, liquidate, discontinue, and then sell through all this inventory. Now, here's the kicker. Within the furniture space, Eric, timeless design, right? There's classics out there like an Eames chair, for example. Something that's well designed will sell just as well 5 years ago as it will today. So our whole approach was, how do we build a modern home essentials brand? One where we have a curated assortment of products that are modular, that provide great value and quality, and that work in a small space in Singapore or the UK, or a large family home in Vancouver, Canada. So that was our thesis. And if we felt that if we could speak to that well, we wouldn't have to have this large assortment, right? And that's how this iteration kind of began. So we would start with a product or start with a category and then iterate on the quality until we got it just right. And our returns were so low and the customer satisfaction was so high.
Amazing. You mentioned your returns are like it's pretty common for, industries 10 to 15, even 20% sometimes. What are your return rates?
Yeah, so they're quite low. Our fastest growing category for the past few years has been upholstery, so sofas and things like that. Our return rate is under 2%. And then when you look at things like mattresses, just a note for the audience, within the furniture space, the two largest categories or types of products that weigh that business is mattress and upholstery. And then you'll go into like dining and various types of other homewares. So when we look at upholstered products, it's under 2%. When we look at mattresses, now given the wave of mattress in a box brands around the world, you've seen return rates go up on the basis that customers now have more choice. And in some cases, they exploit, these 100-night trial offers and things like that. And you'll have, based on public knowledge, you'll have mattress in a box players that have return rates well above 15%. Ours is hovering around 7 or 8%, which is very low. And
Nice.
so we're quite happy about that.
What geos are you in today at this date right now?
So we're currently in Singapore. We're a market leader in that country. We're in Australia, which is an incredible consumer market, very much like Canada and the US, I would say, in terms of size, in terms of consumer preferences. And then we're in the UK and Canada. And so we're vertically integrated. So everything from product design, website, operations, and customer support is done in-house. The only two things we don't do or we outsource is the manufacturing itself. So sourcing directly from various factories. And then the second piece is 3PL. So in our in our space, we can't ship sofas with FedEx and Purolator and UPS. We need to work with folks called white glove service. So these are specialized types of 3PLs, third party logistics providers that do warehousing, pick and pack, and final mile delivery for the customer. And we do this in all countries. We currently are warehousing goods across 7 warehouses worldwide, and we don't drop ship. So we're actually purchasing product in advance, full containers from around the world. We source from the US in the Mississippi. We source from Portugal all the way through Vietnam, India, and China. And these goods are purchased in advance and warehoused by our partners.
Amazing. So this is to 21 million with run rate for more without even tapping the US market yet.
That's right. Yep.
Very
And we're
cool.
actually, I would say we're underpenetrated in our current markets. Again, when you're bootstrapped, and I'm sure a lot of folks listening in could relate to it, you have to make really hard choices. There's so many products I'd love to sell and introduce to our customers. There's so many markets we'd like to expand into, but we have to focus. And it's hard. It's really hard to do that. So we're currently and unfortunately not selling yet on the west coast of Canada. We do very little on the west coast of Australia as well. So much more to pursue
Hard
and
to know where
dream
to
of.
start. I was Googling that it was over a $500 billion industry, a $500 billion industry. So sometimes you can probably be overwhelmed by the opportunities.
It's a huge industry, and you'll have the international players like IKEA, whom no one competes with, in many regards, and it's highly segmented and locally concentrated. So what that means is you'll have a lot of local players that just sell in one province or one state, let alone a whole country. You'll have a lot of players that only focus on traditional retail or other D2C brands that do just bedding. And there's some phenomenal brands out there that have done great things in the past few years. So what's really unique is that there's so many categories to operate in alone and so many geographies. And so there's just a wealth of opportunity. And I think that, our approach to this was never, market share in the pure sense of it, or could we be top five? It's just, hey, could we build a great business that's break even, that's profitable, that customers love, and let's build on that. And let's listen and see how that goes. That's always been our approach to it.
And you've always fueled it with performance marketing, and that's something that you guys handle in house. Is that are you doing that specifically, or do you have a team member for that?
So up until I would say um, maybe 1 or 2 years ago, we did everything in house. The creative. So I would hop onto Photoshop or Illustrator and create the ads, and my partner JC would run with that. And it just became unsustainable on the basis of the many countries we're in, the many categories we're in, and the many platforms that exist. And we're running hundreds of variations of iterations, right, across Google, Facebook, TikTok, and beyond. So we began working with partners um, to help with that process. But the key in our business has always been positive unit economics on the first sale. So this is quite different than a lot of other spaces, right? We don't traditionally look at, LTV to CAC. We're profitable or break even on the first sale. Just to give you guys a sense of things, in Canada, if I use that country as an example, where we sell predominantly sofas, our AOV, our average basket size, is close to $2,000. And so on that very first sale, we try to at least break even, if not hit profitability. And so the acquisition challenge and opportunity is that we have a high AOV. It may not be high frequency for the same type of product, the key is creating a compelling experience, Eric, to get folks to purchase a sofa online. So that's really where my partner JC, our team, our partner excel at. That's really hard.
It's a high touch funnel. It's a high consideration product, and it's something that people want to bounce on and sit on. So I'm curious to know, like, can you describe your funnel a little bit? How you've actually managed to create those touch points virtually.
Yeah, so it begins with the product. Fundamentally, if you have a fantastic product, number one, that's differentiated, that has perceived value, and that has some form of reputation that goes alongside it, whether it's referral and all of that. I think that's the fundamental basics that you need to have, right? Because ultimately you could push all you want on a transactional basis, but it'll catch up to you. So we always wanted to have something quite compelling from a product point of view. We then look at the website and have to create an experience on our site at noahome.com that is enjoyable, that is current from an aesthetic point of view, from a UX point of view, whether it's financing, things of that nature. And then finally, the acquisition piece has to follow, a path to purchase that makes sense. So I'll speak to that maybe a little bit. Would that be good? So, you know, folks don't see an ad for a sofa and then just click on it and then drop $1,000 or $2,000. There's a path to purchase that goes alongside that. And so you need to ensure that, again, you have the right product, the right price point, and so on. Then the reputation management comes in. So online reviews, various types of UGC that's being shown from existing customers, testimonials, things like that. And then what we want to do is walk them through this path to purchase through an acquisition strategy that's compelling. So the funnel will begin with any number of digital channels, whether it's Facebook, Google, TikTok, Pinterest, or just organic UGC or organic search. Just a note for the audience, we actually used to have a showroom in Singapore. And so the showroom was a great place for the touch and feel of furniture, of sofas, right? Unfortunately, when the pandemic hit and lockdown measures were in place, first in East Asia, well before they came into the Western world, we closed our showroom in Singapore and had to figure out, okay, what could we do to mitigate against this loss of a channel that is so important for high touch, high priced products. And that's where we got the idea of virtual consultations. So today we offer a service, an experience called virtual consultations, which are free. And customers love this. We within the funnel, so at the top of the funnel, you'll have your original, first touch, whether it's on Facebook or Google or whatnot. And as you kind of go through the middle of the funnel and lower funnel, we'll retarget you to book online consultations with our designers. And that gives the legitimacy and the confidence of a user, of a customer, to see a real person from our team and speak to a product that they're interested in. And I cannot emphasize how transformative that has been as within the path to purchase.
I bet, and I bet in my experience with these things, when you get people on the phone when they're considering a purchase, their questions aren't rocket science. They quite often they just need someone to bounce their thoughts off of. Is that what you guys find, or is there a long
Yeah.
consultation that occurs?
I mean, you look. I think you'll have as many questions as you have consumers, but traditionally in our space, the most important thing is this available? So the furniture industry has been historically plagued with stock availability, and it's even been exacerbated by the supply chain disruptions of the past year, where virtually or very few brands are able to secure inventory for extended periods of time. It's really hard. And so the question of, is this available? How soon could I get it? Um, you know, Talk about the product, the comfort, things like that. So we've done a few innovative things, I would say, in our space virtual consultation being one of them, right? So we're not all designers, interior decorators, and providing that experience to a consumer is quite compelling. Again, it speaks to that legitimacy. And then through that channel, if I may put it that way, we learn a lot. We learn a lot about what customers want. We learn a lot about the pain points, and we try to address them. Like fabric swatches is huge. Everyone wants to, at the very least, see the color, the material, and so on. So we send those out for free, and that's been very helpful for consumers. And we really walk them through any concerns that they may have. Now, another thing that's great is, because we do white glove delivery, there's also that high touch service, if you will. So we'll do mattress disposals, sofa disposals, and donate those to charities. So when you get a phone call as a consumer saying, hey, Eric, when would you like your delivery? Saturday between 9 and 10 a.m. There's this level of trust that you start to build with the consumer, and that's really important within this experience, this process.
Do most of your sales now come through this consultative experience, or are they sort of split between people that just say, ah, it looks good enough to me and they buy it? Or like, what percentage go through the consultation process?
They don't. Not, a lot of folks still just like going online, doing their own research, trusting in reviews, the experience, maybe referrals. And that's been a growing part of our business. I should add is returning customers. So on the basis of low return rates, differentiated products, people are coming back. So, we've basically doubled our business every year. We've also seen returning customers come back at a high rate, which, I think validates, if I may put it that way, what we're doing. The virtual consultations, without providing a specific number, what they really do is they help the conversion more so than anything. So, the customer who's undecided, who's apprehensive on the ticket or the features of a product, it's more of a conversion uh, um, tool than anything else, I would say. And
Got
so
it.
that's helpful.
Very cool. So you've mentioned your ad mix. I'm always curious what is generally your top of funnel ad mix right now between the players like Facebook and TikTok and Google and Pinterest. Like what does your split look like?
I mean, I would say Facebook, Google take the cake to this day. Now, one of the things that's always been really that's driven our success is from day one, I built an in-house ERP. So what I mean by that is from a very early stage of our company, we knew the importance of data and analytics, and we obviously couldn't afford a robust enterprise level ERP. So we built our own. And that ERP served us in so many ways, not just from, you know, uh, planning, forecasting, and buying or customer management, but from an analytics point of view, from a BI point of view. And why that was so important, Eric, was that we never relied on Google Analytics or Facebook Ad Manager in terms of ROAS or anything like that. We were looking at our in house data to look at actual sales that were made, to look at the various costs associated to our acquisition channels, whether it's Google, Facebook, influencer, or whatnot. And we would take that, consolidate it within one system, and have our true acquisition cost, return on ad spend, media efficiency ratio, CPVs, and revenue per users. So whether it was early days or even with iOS 14.5 and many changes that have occurred, the data that we were always looking at remained consistent on the basis that it was our data, it was our analytics. And so that was extraordinarily helpful. And so to come back to the original question, we still have we're heavily indexed in Google, Facebook, but we do a lot on Pinterest. We've been dabbing in TikTok, of course, as volatility on Facebook and other platforms has arisen. And we've done a lot of work with um, influencers, trade and hospitality, so on the B2B side, which I could speak to, and things like whitelisting, UGC is very important, especially with our type of product. So we're quite diversified across those channels online.
and and definitely ahead of the curve with so many we just been doing podcasts recently on the advertisers that we still run into that are kind of using they're kind of flying blind a little bit by using Facebook's on platform numbers still. And so we triangulate between Shopify and Google Analytics and Facebook when it comes to our clients, but to have built out an entire like ERP system that kind of preempts this, it seems like a good move. And like, you mentioned in the pre-interview how sort of ruthless you are on your ROAS goals. Can you speak a little bit to how you've kept such a high ROAS on these channels?
Yeah, so again, data has always driven every decision, whether it was changing the density of foam on a product. So we actually monitor every return, every batch number, every country, to really optimize on the product. And so being this obsessed with data is really important. And to those within the space, you'll know that Google Analytics data is not always accurate. There's sales that are missed, that are potentially missing from the platform. There's sometimes overages that don't really make sense. You look at Facebook sales that they're saying they led to that conversion and whatnot. So really pooling everything into the ERP was critical. I have to mention that. For the first, I don't know, please don't quote me on this, but on the first, I'd say 3 years or 4 years, our return on ad spend was anywhere between 400 and 600%. Um, Again, this varies by month, by country, but consistently, I would say even in the early days, it was like 500 to 600%. And now keep in mind, our AOV is really, really high. Now, at a consolidated level, at a international level across all those four countries, our AOV is around $1,000, give or take. And so our return on ad spend has hovered around 4 to 6 consistently throughout history, including up until today. So now we're roughly at about 4. Some weeks it's 500%. Again, it depends on the market. And the last year, where we've seen our return on ad spend either shoot up or be under pressure, if you will, was stock availability. This was the number one factor that impeded a strong ROAS. So effectively, your return on ad spend is a function of what you're selling, what you're spending on ads, right? But it's also the conversion rate. So when you're driving traffic to a site and you want that conversion rate to be as high as you want it to be, right? Well, when you're out of stock in our vertical, that's the difference between 0.5% on your conversion rate. And that's a dramatic, margin, if you will, on performance. So stock availability has played a dramatic role on performance.
So you were a little bit preemptive with your ability to track and have really strong attribution, which is awesome. But I think the other thing that's affected so many advertisers is just the retargeting funnel, losing your reliability on being able to retarget users who are already in your funnel. And I'm curious, for a product that has as many touches as yours does and is as long a consideration period as sometimes, have you found any big impacts to your retargeting strategy since iOS 14.5?
I typically, and my partner, we speak a lot about this. We never felt that, and this may sound controversial in some respects, but we never really felt that 14.5 dramatically had an impact on our business. What had an impact on our business was what I would consider the volatility that we saw in ad delivery on CPMs, things like this, but not the targeting per se. So again, because all the data lies within our own ERP, and now we're on a Microsoft system using Power BI. And so data is live. So we have live analytics and we get to see where our customers are buying from and so on and so forth. So maybe I'll take a step back and walk you through the typical path to purchase for furniture. So flash sales don't work for us, right? Again, people don't, see a ticker and want to buy a sofa or a mattress or bedding like within 48 hours. Exactly. So what's really important to us, and it's been the case since the beginning, was building trust. So for us, it's how do we build trust over time? And the typical timeline from first touch to purchase is about 7 to 14 days. Again, depending on the category and the country. So it's relatively long, if you will. And so what we typically want to do is our ads creative is really important, right? So, you'll look at your first ad, it's really about discovery, awareness, brand resonance, things of this nature. You're really trying to tell the story of Noah Home, how we're authentic, how we're supplier and story driven. I could speak to that if you'd like about, the sustainability of our products and things like that. That first touch is really important. As you go through the funnel, there's a multitude of creatives that are touching on virtual consultations, that are touching on UGC or whitelisting. We've been doing whitelisting for actually quite some time. And that's really compelling in that funnel, right? And the ambassador program that we've launched, which is a way of working with affiliates and influencers, has been extremely helpful um, within these channels. So really, it's about creating trust during this time frame, Eric, to get the customer to finally arrive at a point where they're saying, "Hey, I want to book a consultation." Two, I have sufficient trust based on referrals, based on the reputation of this business, that I'm willing to take it in. And then the third piece, like I would say, it's like at the very last moment, Eric, is creating an experience that turns down the barriers within an industry that I believe has not innovated in decades, right? So creating an actual return policy that's fair. you know, I think people are scared to buy a sofa and say, "Hey, I never tried it. How do I return it? What happens?" And so donating to charity, that's extremely compelling. That's something that means a lot to me personally, to do as much as we can by products that we take back. So it's about creating that experience, that comfort in purchase for such a large ticket.
Great advice. Um, I wanted, I think we'll have to have you back on the podcast here. We're just coming to the end, and I think we've just scratched the surface of, you're our first furniture brand on, and I think there's a lot to learn. But our stock question that we love to ask is, if we were to give you $50,000, you're spending more than that regularly, but if you had an incremental $50,000 to add to your marketing budget in the next month, where would you add it right now in the business to see the biggest impact?
Um, I would actually have to say the consultations, innovating on the experience, not on pure acquisition of Facebook, Google. Again, we're break even profitable. Not on a flywheel of influencer UGC whitelisting. It's really about how do we create something that's innovative, that speaks to the consumer in a novel way that our peers are not doing. And we got to where we are with 50K. And it's surprising what you could do with so little when you have the passion and the scrappiness, so to speak, to just do a photo shoot, as we still do today. Maybe not wearing a dress shirt, but just putting on a regular crew neck and just doing it, right? So I think the virtual consultation, why? It's novel, it's interactive, it's engaging, and it's a conversion tool, right? We want to convert. We don't want to just put dollars in this black box and on the whims of the taxes, if you will, that some of the large digital advertisers put on us as founders, as D2C brands, not know where those dollars are going to go. The virtual consultation, I think, in our space, on what we've seen, would be the most compelling.
I love it. And I love just the way it plays in your funnel, how you mentioned that your creatives mention it. Maybe it's not the first thing you're hitting them with, but as they go down the funnel, they become aware that it's something that's possible. And then even building the influencer content into there, it's really just about giving people as many different kind of looks and options of a product to kind of make them feel confident. And I think that influencer content plays a great role in there as well, just to see other people enjoying the products. Like, oh, if that influencer likes it, that's probably good for me as well, kind of deal. It sounds like you've thought out this marketing funnel quite well. I'm just curious, what's your last, like, when do you think you will try to conquer the US at any point? Is that on your radar?
We'd like to look. I don't think I'd surprise anyone in saying that the last few months or last year has been volatile, has been hard. There's been a lot of headwinds for all of us, and I can't help but say to anyone listening that I'm happy to share any further insights if anyone wants to reach out to me. The other thing is my partner has played an incredible role in understanding the funnel, in understanding the importance of building trust. There's never been more D2C brands. Incumbents are innovating in their own right. So really, I think what's been key is understanding how to build trust, how to do it in a novel way. And my partner and my whole team has really been creative in that respect. And Eric, I want to mention this. Whether it was my past experience at another brand as we grew or at Noa Home, there's one thing that doesn't require money: creativity. And so there's always going to be players that have deeper pockets, funding and whatnot. But if you're creative, if you have a differentiated product or experience, you could compete. And on that basis, we'd love to enter the US. It's a large market. We've proven that we could open international markets from our home in Montreal, Canada. So we're confident that we could do that in the US, and we're hoping to do so later this year.
They won't know what hit them. I just got to say. You mentioned people getting in touch with you. How would you recommend that our listeners get in touch with you if they're interested?
So uh, email me, Twitter, LinkedIn. Starting a company, as I mentioned a while ago, is hard, and there's a lot that we could learn from each other. They could email me at Jeremy Kopek, Kopek at noahome.com. I just want to support fellow entrepreneurs, folks that love the D2C space, and maybe learn from them as well. I learned so much just speaking to other founders from other verticals on acquisition, on UGC. Unfortunately, working with influencers is not as easy as shipping, a mascara or, you know, apparel. We're selling sofas, so it's not as easy, right? So learning from their experiences is always really inspiring. So we have a lot to learn from each other.
You certainly can't spray and pray in the same way you could with mascara, where you could send out, 100 mascaras. Like, you've got to make sure that your influencer relationships are dialed in, that they're a long-term partner, that you're sending them a $2,000 couch.
Yeah, and that's maybe a conversation for another day, working with
Yeah.
trade professionals and architects and so on. But finding the right people to work with, bringing them into the ambassador program or and affiliates is really key. But it's tough. It's not for the faint of heart. Whether it's purchasing sofas, warehousing them, or delivering them, it's heavy in many ways.
Fantastic. Well, we will get you back on, and I will also be looking up when I'm in Montreal. We may or may not be planning some events in the east there in the coming months, so I'll keep you posted on that. This has been a lot of fun, Jeremy. Thanks for coming on the D2C podcast.
It's been great. Thanks for having me, and thanks to everyone listening.
Thanks so much for listening to today's episode. If you're not a subscriber to our newsletter, you can do that right now at direct-to-consumer, all one word, .co. I'm Eric Dick, and this has been the D2C podcast. We'll see you next time.